welcome to Your Family Dog, a podcast dedicated to helping families love living with dogs. Here are your hosts, Julie Fudge Smith and Colleen Pelar.
Hi, welcome back to Your Family Dog. I'm Colleen Pelar, and I'm here with Julie Fudge Smith. And in honor of President's Day, we thought we would explore presidential pets because, that's interesting. But I didn't know anything about presidential pets, so we had to do a little bit of research. And that brought me to the Harry Truman quote that may or may not actually be a Harry Truman quote, which is, if you want a friend in Washington, get a dog. And since Julie and I are firm believers that a dog is one of the very best friends you could ever have, we thought we'd talk a little bit about dogs and other animals who've lived in the White House.
Yes. Well, I remember when we lived in Washington and my husband was in the news and being fairly controversial, and people that we thought were his friends were not his friends. I said something to him like, well, at least you can come home to the dog. So we felt very much the same way that Truman was right, that if you want a friend in Washington, get a dog. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if Truman had a dog or not. I think he did. Do you remember in our little article if Truman had a dog?
I am blanking on that at this moment.
I am blanking. Well, you know what? We go on. I will talk about another one of our American founders, George Washington, which I thought was really interesting. I didn't know this before I found this article. He bred his own hounds and is, according to legend, the father of the American foxhound, which I thought was really cool.
That is really cool. And I didn't know that either.
I didn't either. And the American foxhound is a beautiful dog. And unlike some other breeds of dogs, I don't know if it has changed as significantly over the years. Many of the breeds have been manipulated and changed, but I don't hear that much about the foxhound because I don't think many people keep foxhounds as pets per se. I think they keep foxhounds for hunting reasons. And so therefore, they may not have had the same pressure on them to mold into family life per se or to look in a particular way. But I don't know. If anybody knows about foxhounds out there, please give us some feedback and let us know if there's anything we're missing about the current American foxhound. The other thing that was interesting, I found about George Washington, that he also bred mules. And sometimes he used donkey stock sent to him by King Charles III of Spain. Who knew that Spanish donkeys were bred into American mules?
Well, I just found out that Truman did not, he had dogs given to him and then given away. So he apparently wasn't really wild about keeping them with him. But his daughter Margaret was given a puppy, and the puppy spent the first summer at the family home in Independence, Missouri, and then probably didn't spend too much time at the White House.
So, just because he thinks you should get a dog doesn't mean that he thinks he should have one. Maybe he thought he had a lot of friends in Washington.
Perhaps.
Who knows? Perhaps. But, not everybody has to have a dog. We've talked about that in one of our episodes. Mm-hmm. That maybe not everybody is a dog person, and that is perfectly fine, too. One of the things that I thought was quite interesting was Thomas Jefferson. He got a pair of grizzly bears from Captain Zebulon Pike, for which Pike's Peak was named, by the way. And he didn't keep the bears for very long, though. I think he sent them to live with his friend Charles Wilson Peale, the naturalist and artist.
Which is good, because grizzly bears in the Rose Garden is probably not a good plan.
Right, and I can't imagine that they wouldn't make a mess of the Oval Office. Although I don't think Jefferson was in the Oval Office. I don't think the White House was built at that point. But I could be wrong about that. So historians correct us if Jefferson was in the White House, but I don't believe that he was. I don't think it was until Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison. I don't think it was until Madison, fourth president. But once again, I am not a historian. I'm a dog trainer. So
yeah, but you're a dog trainer with way more historical knowledge than I have, because I was totally forgetting that piece. Which, like when you say it, I'm like, oh yeah. But that's where I was. Oh yeah. Not feeling very bright.
My husband would know. My husband would know this sort of thing, but he's not here. So we cannot ask our resident historian because he's off the job. But he got rid of the bears. They went to live with his naturalist artist friend, Charles Wilson Peel. Until then, they lived in a cage on the lawn of the president's house. It doesn't say White House, so I'm thinking it was just his house.
Yeah.
But he also owned more conventional pets like Briard dogs, which I also found interesting. Did not know. But the Briard is a French breed, and I wonder if he picked them up when he was ambassador to France, where he was introduced to the Briard.
Yes, I wondered that too when I saw that, because he did spend quite a bit of time in France and would certainly have been able to establish a household and have,
That's right.
And he might have family pets and stuff.
That's right. And maybe somebody gave him a couple of Briards and he actually liked the pet and kept them.
Yeah.
That may be. Anyway, anybody who's a Jefferson scholar out there knows about the Briards, you can give us a tweet on that too. Apparently, Colleen, you and I are going to be getting, hopefully, a lot of information from others about the things that we're supposed to be talking about. But
that'd be awesome. Because, as we've always said on the podcast, we're curious. We have a lot of things we'd love to know more about. So, if you know more, please share.
Please share. Andrew Jackson taught his parrot, Pole, to swear. That's pretty cool, I guess. You got to teach it something. You might as well teach it to, have a colorful vocabulary, shall we say.
Yes, and then I saw that Pole outlived him, which could be a little bit challenging, and that he needed to be removed from Jackson's funeral service because Pole would not stop cursing during the service, which is just so deferential and reverential. I'm sure he made it memorable for people.
Yes, I'm sure it was, but it's very Jacksonian. Jackson was a rough and ready kind of guy, so I think that's probably very appropriate. He probably was watching down on and approving the whole thing and wishing they hadn't removed him. But then again, I didn't know Andrew Jackson, so this is just all summation on my part. So, one of the sweetest ones I think though was Abraham Lincoln, who had a pair of nanny goats, Nanny and Nanko, and his son Tad was quite attached to them, and I believe it was Tad that died in the White House, wasn't it?
I believe it was.
Yeah, and it was, and Tad was quite devoted to these pets. He let them sleep in his bed and harnessed them to chairs so that I guess they could. What I'm wondering, can goats be house trained?
That is a really good question. I don't know much about goats, but from what I've heard, not very easily.
No, because I don't think they have control over their sphincter muscles like other. Yes. Like dogs.
Which is one of the reasons they're not very commonly therapy pets.
Right.
Because it makes it harder to take them into a facility.
Right. And I think it's the same thing with horses and cows and other hoof stock. Because of what they eat, the nature of the fact that they are passing so much vegetation through their digestive system, they have to be able to move it quickly. And so hence the inability to control one's sphincter muscles in the same way.
I know nothing. So here, people correct me. But I do know that mini horses are often used as service animals, so they must be able to have some control.
That's right. Or maybe they're more predictable about, it could be that you're right, they might either have some control, or one, they may be more predictable about the length of time between defecations. So that if you take your mini horse out and he defecates, you know that you have 25 minutes until the next one. Or maybe they can, like sometimes in cities, you'll see carriages and horses have those little bags strung behind. I don't know if mini horses can do that. And mini horses may be different than regular horses as far as the control of their...
Well, I can assure you the bag concept is probably not going to fly with places if they want to use them as a service animal. Like, oh, look, in my restaurant, there's a horse with a, oh dear. Yeah. Well,
I will also tell you, too, that the ADA does not recognize anything besides dogs as service animals, the American with Disabilities Act. So if you're thinking of using your mini horse as a service animal, you probably will find it difficult to get it certified. They can be used more as therapy animals than they can really as service animals because they're not recognized by the ADA. I don't think, and I just recently read that, but I could be wrong. So once again, all of you who are calling in to correct us, you can call and correct us about that one, too, if I have that wrong.
Awesome.
Which, okay. They had going back to Abraham Lincoln and his wonderful goats, he had a dog, Jip. He had kittens and a turkey named Jack that Tad obtained a presidential pardon for from Christmas dinner in 1863. This is why you should never name your food, because then you have to get a pardon. Speaking of naming food, I was looking in my Joy of Cooking the other day, and they give directions on how to cook squirrel and rabbit and how to skin it and
really
possum. Yes, they do. But you see, I have a very old Joy of Cooking because I'm a very old woman, and I got it when I got married. Anyway, the new Joys of Cooking do not have possum instructions. Mine does. And this is what you're supposed to do if you want to eat possum. You have to capture the possum live, keep it in a cage for 10 days and feed it bread and milk in order to clean its system out, and then you kill it. And I'm like, no, then it's a pet. If I have fed anything for 10 days with bread and milk, it is now a pet, and it's probably named Jack, and he's not going anywhere. So we're not eating possum anytime soon in this household.
No, that's fascinating. I have a Joy of Cooking from way back when I got married that I actually gave Jack, because at that time he liked to cook, which promptly ended right there. And I may have thrown it out recently because I don't like to cook either, but it might still be in my cabinet. I'm totally going to have to check to see if possum is in my 1987 version of Joy of Cooking.
Well, mine was in 1981, and I don't know if my 1987 they have eliminated the possum. But what we could do, because I don't think this is going to violate copyright, but I'll check with my lawyer husband on this one. I can take a picture of the possum page, and we can put that on the webpage if you want. Anyway, but back to presidents. Let's go to Theodore Roosevelt.
Let's. He had a lot of pets. Roosevelt had a lot of pets. Hopefully not as food.
No, but Roosevelt was an interesting individual. This article says Theodore Roosevelt could have opened a zoo. Let's see. He probably had more pets than cabinet members, including a bull terrier, a Manchester terrier, a Peak, a Chesapeake Bay retriever, one of the only American retrievers. I think he is the only American retriever, is the Chesapeake Bay, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
I think it's the only. I think it is. I think it's the only retriever of totally American origin. But once again, you Chesapeake Bay retriever people, let me know. And a St. Bernard. That's just the dogs. Okay. What else did he have? He had a fleet of guinea pigs. Oh my goodness! Did you read the names here? The awesome names like Dr. Johnson, Flying Bob Evans, and Admiral Dewey. Okay, a macaw named Eli Gale, a one-legged rooster, Emily Spinach, the garter snake, Maud the pig, Bill the lizard, Josiah the badger, and various cats, mutts, rabbits, owls, ponies, and even a hyena. Okay, my question is, mutts, aren't mutts dogs?
I would think so, yes. But perhaps this article person was really looking at, breeds. But yes, that poorly edited.
Who would keep a hyena, and how? How would you keep a hyena?
I know.
Put him in the cage that Jefferson left for the bears?
Yes, and if you had the hyena, how are you successfully keeping the rabbits and the owls and the cats?
Not to mention the dogs, badgers, and garter snakes.
Yeah.
I mean, hyenas are pretty vicious predators. Anyway, so I just find that amazing, the number of animals that Theodore Roosevelt had. I wonder if the White House had a much bigger lawn at that time than it does now. Or maybe the lawn was more accessible. I have no idea. Maybe that's when they fenced in the yard at the White House. When did they put the fence
Why
around?
did we fence the White House? Oh, because we just needed to keep the pets in.
That dang hyena kept running over to the Treasury building.
Or Emily Spinach, the garter snake, slithering her way across.
That's right. Emily Spinach, the garter snake. Wow.
Yes.
Okay. So, what was your next favorite one, Colleen?
I liked learning about Franklin Delano Roosevelt's dog Fala, who was given a nickname, the Informer, because when FDR would come to town, often that was the way word got out, was that people would be walking Fala and they would go, "Oh, is that Fala? Is that FDR's dog? Maybe he's here." And I thought that was kind of cool.
Yes, that is pretty cool. The Informer. Yes. What I didn't is I think everybody knows that he had Fala, but I don't think people realize that he had another one, Maggie, but he also had bigger dogs. He had a German Shepherd, an Old English Sheepdog named Tiny, a Great Dane, and a Bull Mastiff. Those are big dogs.
Yes. And the Great Dane was named president. So I would like to know if the Great Dane was named president before he was president or after he was president.
I don't know. And if people would say, Mr. President, are they talking to him or the dog?
Indeed. And I learned recently that the word president was originally not supposed to be a high status word. So it has taken on the connotation over the years of being a really powerful thing. Like to be the president is now a powerful thing. But it really is about presiding, the person who presides over the meeting.
Oh.
And it was to be very different from a king or a ruler. It was supposed to just be kind of the one who shows up and facilitates. You know, the facilitator, the presider, the president. Awesome. And I thought that was very interesting wordplay and how much that has changed over the years.
So I'm wondering if the Founding Fathers were thinking in that vein. Yes. I really think they probably were.
They were, because they said they were deliberately choosing, at least according to what I had learned, they were deliberately choosing a low status word for the role. To say, I'm one of equals. I have a job to do, but I am just a member of this populace doing a job, as opposed to I am the ruler.
Wow. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we still had that essence of the word? I mean, I just think that maybe the last 50 years of politics might not have been as quite as invigorating, shall we say, as they had been if those who were running for that highest office had thought of themselves more as a presider as opposed to a ruler. Yeah. Interesting. And it's also interesting, it's fascinating to me how words can change their meanings over time.
Absolutely.
And in a relatively short period, 250 years is really not that long a time period for such a dramatic shift in the meaning of a word. So, wow. Well, that's really interesting. Who knew that we were going to get into etiology? I know.
Well, we're nerds. But if you name your Great Dane president, it makes me think these things.
Yes. Well, I wonder what he thought. Was the Great Dane going to preside over cabinet meetings? He could. He's big enough. But Bull Mastiff. You don't see. I see a few, but I don't see a lot of Bull Mastiffs. But they're wonderful dogs. I love them. They are short-lived, though. That's one of the problems with the giant breeds. So I know that there was another part that really intrigued you, and that was about Kennedy's dog. You want to talk about the dog?
Yes.
We
learned that Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev gave a puppy to Caroline Kennedy. And the puppy, Pushinka, was an offspring of the Soviet space dog, Strelka. And I thought that was just shocking for the whole Cuban Missile Crisis time or any of that President Kennedy would have received a puppy from Khrushchev, and that this puppy did indeed have additional puppies with Caroline's other dog, Charlie, a Welsh Terrier, and Kennedy called those puppies pupniks, which I thought was funny.
That is very funny. That's very cute. But yeah, in some ways it's really fascinating to me. You're right, that he could have taken a dog like that as a gift. And my also thinking too, it's like, then since we've had dogs exchanged across the world, how in the world did we get to the Bay of Pigs? I mean, come on, we have dogs here to mediate the situation. But wow, I thought that was really interesting. What a different time. I don't know. Barack Obama got Portuguese water dogs from Senator Ted Kennedy, but I can't imagine the controversy that would come if a president, in the last few presidents, would have gotten the gift of a puppy from an international leader. I think that that would have caused a
and
great
particularly an international leader with whom we have some ruffled tensions, you know?
Yeah,
so
Hussein had sent a talk to George Bush. Now that would be an interesting.
Yeah. It's a very interesting concept because, like, when we were talking about the Briards and Thomas Jefferson, I mean, it wasn't when he was president necessarily that he got these dogs because his time in France was before then. But, this was a country with whom we had pretty good relations at the time, and he got a dog, and okay, all normal. But yes, if it's a country where the relationships were different, a little bit more tension-filled, I mean, just when you bring up the point about the Obamas getting the Portuguese water dogs, there was controversy about that. Should they get spirited dogs? Should they get mixed breed dogs? Should they get specific breeds? What was right? What was wrong? How did they do it? Whatever they did, it wasn't right. And so if we were just to say, oh, well, we're just getting this nice Russian dog, Pushinka, from the Soviet space dog, it's an interesting thought experiment just to wonder how we would react if we were to be getting a dog from another place at this time.
Well, the other thing is if you think about it, the controversy has certainly shifted. It wasn't who provided the dogs to the Obamas. It was the nature of the dog. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, what a completely different shift in the controversy, not from where did the dogs come from, but what kind of dog are they? And I think that controversy remains. There are those who are, just stalwart in their belief that the only way to get a dog is to adopt one from a shelter. And, there are others who think that perhaps one can be a bit more flexible about that. So that is a big controversy in the dog world right now is the origin of your dog.
Yes.
But I did meet a presidential dog. Did I tell you this?
No. Which presidential dog did you meet?
During the second Bush administration, we had a friend who worked in the White House, and she said she could get us into the tour. So we met her, and she took us through the White House. And as we were headed to the beginning to the tour, we literally ran into Laura Bush. Spot, I think it was. Yes. Anyway, and she was very gracious, and she shook our hands. We said hello, and I bent down and Spot licked my hand. So I was very excited. I got to meet a White House dog, which was really fun. And then we went on our tour. But anyway, so I have met.
And you were the whole time going, I don't really need the tour.
I don't.
Could I just go sit on the floor with Spot?
That was just about it. It was like, really, I don't need to see the green room. I really like the dog. So anyway, I was very excited to have met a presidential dog. That's my one and only claim to fame. Okay,
that's a pretty good claim to fame, and it's interesting too that you lead it with I've met a presidential dog, and you didn't say like I met a first lady. She's just incidental in the story. I have met 0 presidential dogs and 0 first ladies and 0 presidents. So there you go.
There you go.
You and Spot, you have racked up the points there. Yep. That's so interesting.
Yeah, and she was quite lovely that we sort of went through this doorway and we startled her, and she was so gracious about the whole thing. And the Secret Service guys were pretty nice too. They didn't immediately say, halt, who goes there? So anyway.
So just thinking about that. So here's like this ordinary moment when you're startling someone and she's hanging out with her dog. I think that's the whole point here. Like when we're thinking about this entire completely random and rambling episode that we've had, is the companionship that a dog provides, and that regardless of what your job is and what your role in the world is and what other people think or expect of you, having a dog just at your side makes it better.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And I'm actually looking at this list, and it doesn't say that there was a dog named Spot, but
it does. Spotty Fletcher.
That's who we met. Yes,
Spotty Fletcher, named after the baseball player Scott Fletcher.
Okay, so all right. Yes, I would agree. And it was just an ordinary moment. She had a little vase of flowers she was taking to the Oval Office for George's desk, and her dog was with her. And I just think that, I also think, too, that for a lot of presidents, the Oval Office, which goes on to the Rose Garden, the door's open and the dogs come and go as they please. And I would think that that would be something that would be very normalizing and reassuring for a president to know that, my dog can come and go. That's the one sort of normal aspect of my life, because I don't think there's anything normal about a presidential life.
No. No.
But my dog coming and going out of my office as he sees fit, to me, would be very normalizing. I would.
Yeah.
So.
I think so. I think that's a really, I think tying it back to the Truman possible quote, possible not, about wanting a friend in Washington, get a dog. I think that wraps it up. That really, it isn't about what we do so much in this world, because it's about who we are. How are you being versus what are you doing? And with our dogs, we tend to be ourselves, and dogs help us remember who that is.
Yes, I think that's a great way of putting it. And I think that for a president, how wonderful to have that physical connection to an everyday life. My dog needs to go out. He wants me to throw the ball. He wants me to scratch his ears. This is normalizing for me. And what a wonderful gift. That's not to say for those presidents who had cats or pygmy hippos. We didn't talk about Coolidge's pygmy hippo.
We did.
I don't know how affectionate pygmy hippos are and how much they can come in and out of the Rose Garden to the Oval Office. Not much, I think. But it's, I think, the whole idea of not just dog companionship, but animal companionship. I think we are better people for having animals in our lives. And
I think so, too.
I think so, too.
And so in honor of President's Day, we hope you go preside over your household.
That's right. Or
hang out with your dogs and your cats and your spotted geckos.
That's right. And, maybe let your dog preside for the day on President's Day.
Even better.
Even better. All right. Well, thanks, Colleen. We'll see you guys next time on Your Family Dog.
Thanks for listening to Your Family Dog. Got questions? Interesting ideas? Colleen and Julie would love to hear them. Call 614-349-1661 or visit www.yourfamilydogpodcast.com to share your thoughts.